Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Texas morning. Here, it may be evening where you're at, it may be Sunday. I don't know, but I hope that you have or are having a wonderful day. And I am ready to go. I've got my caffeine, I've got my water, and most importantly, I have an amazing guest here today. So I'm really, really excited to get to talk to my great friend, Omar Lopez. And we're going to be talking about amplifying creativity. We're going to be talking about his experiences as a K, or actually as a student, and of course, as a teacher, and talking about just how critical creativity can be in the classroom. So I'm really excited about today's conversation. And first of all, I just want to thank you all too as well, all our listeners, all our audience that is joining us here today, for all of your support and making my EdTech life what it is today. So thank you so much. And if you're joining us in the chat, let us know where you're dropping in from, and we'd love to hear from you. Obviously, participation is a big key as well. So if you have any questions or comments, please drop them into the chat, and Omar and I will be happy to answer those questions if we can, or take the conversation in that way, because you know how it works. We're all about connecting educators, my friends. So, Omar, how are you today, my friend? I'm so happy to for you to be here. It's been a while since we've tried to make this show happen, but I'm really excited that you're here. How's it going today?
It's going great. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you to everyone who's watching us or catching the replay. So thank you all for just joining us. It's been well. It's been a busy end of the school year, start of a new one. Starting the summer. I've been great. Learning quite a bit this year was a learning experience on its own, which is very beneficial to us because we just get to learn new things. And I think that's one thing that we're always looking for, right? Something new. What else is out there? What else can I learn so that we can better serve the community and serve our students, parents, teachers, and whoever we work with. So it's great. Thank you for the invitation. I think we were on a long time ago when you got started. So
Yeah.
excuse me. So yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here once again.
Yeah, man. I'm so happy. Yeah, you and Feli were both on actually my second show that we did of my EdTech life back when we first started. And that show we were talking about, we had the pandemic just started, everything shut down, and it's like how to provide PD during this time. And like you
Yeah.
said, one of the things that you hit on is just the learning experience, like what it has been like for us as educators, for us as instructional coaches or instructional techs, and all of that. It has been a learning experience, and we'll get a little bit into that because I think experience is very important. And imagine how important that is for us as professionals. Like you mentioned, we learn something new, create that experience. I mean, that's something that we're going to need to translate into the classroom too, as well, to create those learning experiences. But we'll get into that a little bit more. But just to, fill it in with a little bit of context, Omar, for all our audience members that may be watching or listening later on, if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself as far as your context in education, and if you can, tell us something interesting about yourself that most people don't know.
Oh man. Well, I was a teacher, a classroom teacher for 17 years. I was in the same campus in La Jolla for since I started teaching back in 2004, and I just left the classroom, and I'm currently now at the Education Service Center Region One, uh, working with the same thing that I love to do is technology integration. So I'm at the Learning Resources Integration team. So it's been awesome this past 2 weeks. I love teaching. I love learning, and I think education is just something that uh, we have a lot of power because we can shape young minds or educators, our colleagues. So I that's me. Let's see, I've been married for almost 21 years. We have two boys. There are extremely intelligent children. We say they keep us busy, and my wife Ellie also. She's like fantastic. I've learned so much from her. She's really my inspiration for anything that I do. So it's great. Something that people don't know. Well, I've talked about this before, and I think this is perfect. I came to the US when I was 10 years old. I had finished, in fact, I had finished elementary, la primaria, right? In school, I had finished sixth grade over there in Reynosa. When I came here, my birthday's in October. I was 10 years old. They put me back in fourth grade. I didn't know any English. And I think, my parents came this way, and I had to, like, sometimes it feels like I had to start from zero because I didn't have the language. So, and that's where the creativity came into. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about this. We'll dive into that. But you know, I came, and it was just having to start and learn a new culture, a new language, learn everything again, even though I had been in school already for 6 years. Um, so but something that most people don't know, I think that I don't know, maybe something will come up throughout the show and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, people don't know this about me. But yeah,
Yeah,
we
no
can
worries.
talk
And you
about
know the
that.
way the convo goes here, man. It's just
Yeah.
completely organic. But I'm glad you kind of hit on that point as far as your experience, your K through 12, because that's something that I did want to talk to you about. Because I mean, I know your story a little bit because I've heard it, but I really wanted to just have you share your experience, because there may be other, obviously there are other educators that work with students that may be new to their district. I mean, new to the country, may not know the language and the way that they have to, adjust to a new culture. And like you said, it's almost like you're starting from zero. So, if you can just tell us a little bit more about that experience. I mean, you just said, you finished sixth grade. Now coming back, they put you two grades back. From your memories, how did that make you feel? Like, once you started and you're like, wait a minute, like I'm supposed to be in sixth grade and you're putting me in fourth. What was going on in your mind, if you remember that far back? Those experiences, and what your thoughts were on that.
That's a great question. I finished over there in Reynosa, in Mexico, and I was very. My grades were high. Everything was well, right? So I started. In fact, where we lived in the rural areas, there was no kinder or pre-kinder. So I was 4 years old, and that's when I went into first grade, and I did fairly well over there. Then I come to the U.S. and it's like they were telling me, well, it doesn't matter what you did; it has no value because of your age. This is where we think you're supposed to be, and that's where they put me. So I didn't even get um, like an opportunity to demonstrate. Okay, I know this much. So yes, I didn't know English, but I still had some academic knowledge. So I knew some of the content. I just knew zero English. So that's my first year here, and then. I've talked about this, and I don't know, that was back in the late 80s, and schools were still allowed to swat children for, as a discipline, as a consequence. So I was swatted for speaking Spanish in the class or in school. And I didn't know. I had, I only knew Spanish, but yet I was being swatted for speaking Spanish. So that was a tough one. And I don't know if they didn't understand, or maybe that's just the way it was, and it was just to set an example. And I see it now, like, well, I had to learn English. It was sink or swim, and I had to learn, and I had to learn, right? By my second year, I was already mainstream in regular classroom because of what I learned, and that's because I had zero schooling in English in Mexico. So here I was just forced to it. But how did I feel initially? Was like, well, your education, whatever you're coming with, has no value, and you are going to assimilate to our ways, and that's the way it was going to be. Later on, everything went well, and I guess because that was a learning experience for me, I just kind of pushed me to just, be on top of my game, because I had to not necessarily work twice as hard, but work harder than most, so that I would be seen as if I had value too, just like the rest of the children that had been here all the time. And I'm not taking anything away from other students, but I felt like I had to work just a little harder, to be seen as everybody else. And that was, early elementary. I had a wonderful teacher, my fifth grade year in La Jolla, Miss Maria Elba Jackson, and I wish I could see her and just say thank you because of everything she did. She was amazing. And then everything after that was good. Good experiences. I participated in extracurricular activities, but I think that first year, that pushed me to learn and just kind of work a little harder, so that I could demonstrate that I could compete with anybody else. Those were my experiences. I did have excellent teachers along the way, and there were some other teachers that that kind of needed to see beyond what was right there in front of them. And I think that's something that we need to advocate for. And that's something that we've been pushing for, is that we need to see, and Feli says this, listen not only with your ears but with your eyes and your heart as well. And I think she hits it right on the dot, because we need to, every child, whether they're new to the US or whether they've been here their whole lives, they have a story, and we don't know what's going on at home. So I think it's important that we listen and observe and understand the whole child, so that we can better serve them.
Wow. And I think you've hit that. So, the way that you expressed that, and, thank you so much for sharing that story. As for many of our viewers, and, that are going to be watching or that are going to be listening to this, I mean, that was what we saw here in our area. I'm not sure if other people experienced it. I'm pretty sure there's other people in other states that might have experienced it, but growing up here in El Mágico Valle, learning, being like, for example, myself, also just Spanish being my very first language, not learning English until second grade, it was very difficult. And I think, like you said, you really did have to work a lot harder to get kind of like that notice, that recognition, because for obvious reasons, many teachers were just kind of put you aside and be like, okay, let me take care of the ones that do understand. And you had to work that much harder to kind of prove yourself. And it really pushed us. And I think it really helped us, grow to be those great educators such as yourself, and really understanding where our students are coming from and being able to show that compassion and that empathy. And like Feli said, really listening not only with our ears, but with our eyes and our hearts, and seeing what it is that they're bringing with them, from home, and making it work. I mean, as educators, we have the magic, like you said, we have that power to really help develop our students, build that sense of community, build up their confidence, and just show them that we do care about them. So I think that's something that is very, very important there. And so let's talk about our experiences a little bit in that, at least as growing up, because in the household, and we talked a little bit about this, prior coming on. We were the language brokers, right, at
Yeah.
home. Hey,
Yeah.
mijo, me llegó esta carta, mijo, no sé qué dice, me la puedes leer. And talk about finally learning English until I was like in first and getting better in second grade. But to think about that pressure, it kind of brings me back when I was smaller. You've got an 8-year-old boy that's reading something in the English that they understand, trying to translate it in Spanish to the parents, and then what if you read something wrong, or if you said something, and then all of a sudden you cause problems. Maybe the bill didn't get paid on time, maybe something like this. I mean, for me, being an only child, man, that was a lot of pressure for me. How about yourself?
Yes, and as you mentioned, and I think that year when, or those couple of years when the family came over, we had tios and tias, and and we had to be the ones that kind of told our parents, hey, this is what this letter says, so this is what they're asking you to do or pay. And like you mentioned, it could be a bill, it could be something else, dealing with the home and their properties or the cars. And the
Mm,
pressure was like, I better get this right, because my tío can lose his house, or they're gonna give him a ticket or what have you, right? So we had to step in. And you mentioned, at 10 years old, we're having to read documents meant for adults. God knows what our reading level was at that point, much less as an English learner. We were probably labeled, and I want to use that word
mhm.
because sometimes we shouldn't be
Yes.
labeling students, but they did. um, we were labeled as an English learner, as a beginner in English learner, or as an intermediate. So we have an intermediate child reading a legal document to one of our parents or a family member. So, it was just, we wanted to get it right so that we could help out. And I remember, man, going to the Pulga on 23rd, right? The flea market on down 23rd. And my dad
Mhm.
was looking for something. And there was this person trying to sell something, and I'm trying to explain, the technical term that my dad is looking for, and I'm having to, okay, can you do a lower price? Le puede bajar el precio. Ahora, ¿cuánto es lo menos? And things like that, and like you mentioned, we're the language broker in the middle of two adults having a conversation about something, some tool or something that's very technical that, they don't teach us those words in school. We use the basic conversation language, but, and it was tough. Um, but I think that, and you hit it right on the head, right? Like that pushed us knowing what, or experiencing that, right? Living those things kind of shaped our future as an educator. And those experiences, you're like, okay, I need to prepare my students, or I need to help my students, not necessarily, uh, you know, or learn with what they're going through. We don't want to remove obstacles. We want to teach our students how to overcome these obstacles. So just having the same experience and knowing the challenges that we had, then we help our students overcome those same challenges.
Mhm. Yeah, and I remember, one of my assignments, and I mentioned this story before, in learning when I got into first grade, having a practice, and my homework was to read to my parents in English for 20 minutes, and they had to sign off that I read to them. And just to share those stories, because I'm pretty sure you have, like, we pretty much some similar stories like that. But I remember my parents sitting in front of me. I mean, they don't speak a single word of English, and even to this day, I mean, now they've been here for a long time, and they'll understand it, but they don't really, I guess, understand it that well. But
Right.
me having to read there, I still remember the look on my parents' faces where they would sit in front of me in the chair, and I'm there reading, and I'm just looking at their eyes as I'm reading. I can see over the book, and just looking at them, and they're just kind of sitting there, just kind of with a smile and nodding. And I don't know, man, like those memories, like they really hit, and those are things that have been with me for such a long time, that, like you said, have really helped now being in education and being an educator, for 15 years. Man, like that still resonates with me. And that's why a lot of the things that I do, like to get involved with parents and build community, is because I know where I came from and how difficult it can
Right.
be for our
Yep.
parents at that time to not, maybe, and that feeling that our parents may have, like, I can't help my kid. Like, my kid is struggling in maybe in reading. I don't know how to help them. My kid is struggling in math. I don't know how to help them. What can I do? And have them feel just, like, useless. And man, that really, I think, has really helped motivate me to just say, I never want any parents to ever feel this way. And that's why I love to reach out to the community, reach out to the students, like you said, knowing them and knowing where they're coming from, to build that community with those parents, because we can relate with them. We lived it. And so yeah, it's really like personal, like really, like, oh man. So yeah, well, that's why, you and I, like, I think we get along so well, because
Yeah.
we've been through those experiences, my friend. Now how, like you said, we talked a little bit about that too as well. But some of the things that you took, those learning experiences, from K-12, learning the language, what were some maybe creative ways that helped you? Kind of like you said, you battled to stand out, you battled to work a little harder. What were some of the things that you would do to help you internalize that learning and to understand it?
I I think what really helped me was my drawing or sketching skills. I think that's where the sketch noting happened for me. Having to create like a little visual of my own, not necessarily like a dictionary or index cards, but just on the regular notebooks, just kind of create a visual, a little drawing um, that matched the words that I was learning, whether it was, the usual, whatever we start with, the door, cups, pencils. So then I would just create a little symbol for it in the sketchnoting. And then to me, I was visually seeing what I was learning. So I think that's where it just kicked off. Um, and using that, and I want to say the creativity, right? Using that
Yeah.
creativity to help me acquire the language is what really propelled me in my academic learning, my academic years, right? Just having to be able to put a symbol or an image, an illustration with a concept, and that just progressed, and it helped me learn a lot easier, a lot more, and then it just became part of a learning strategy, right? So we use visuals to help our English learners, but to me, it's a perfect example because that's what helped me quite a bit. And it was just sketchnoting, and from at first, it was just simple words and then concepts, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an elaborate illustration, but just shapes and boxes and maybe arrows and little lines to highlight certain points. um, Help me, and I think that's something that we need to, um, how do I say this, like, not everybody thinks linearly. Sometimes it's a cloud, sometimes it's a spiral, sometimes it's all over the place, sometimes I forgot to put something and it's at the bottom, but I find a way to connect it to the top of the page of whatever I'm working with. And it's okay, it doesn't have to be linear. I mean, and I practice this with my students. Look, whatever makes sense to you, it might not make sense to your classmates, if they see it, but that's where your presentation skills come in. And if it's something that you drew, that you wrote, or that you outlined makes sense to you, that's phenomenal because that's yours. And we've talked about this before, right? Choice, voice, student agency, because it's the learning for them. So to me, that's where I started really with sketchnoting, and it just progressed, man. Especially like in my history classes that I didn't enjoy that much when I was in college. Now I love the History Channel. I love watching and learning about history. I don't know if it's an age thing or something, but I wasn't too fond of history. But the drawing made it fun, right? So you know, I was learning and I was drawing and I was sketching and I was doing my sketch notes, and I mean, I wish I had kept some of my college notebooks, because as soon as I was done with the semester, I'm like, okay, I'm never going to use this again. But if I had kept them, I would have seen how much I draw. I remember drawing and doodling quite a bit in class, and it's not because I was bored. And I think that's one thing that we point at, or we need to point out: students doodle not because they're bored, but because that's a way for them to internalize things. Um, so to me, that was it, that creativity, my sketchnote and my drawing, that helped me, one, stay focused in class, two, make sense of complex ideas that were probably even more complex because of the language. And it was mine, and it was okay, because that's how I learn, and that's what I push for my students. Just, okay, this is how we're going to learn. It doesn't have to be linear. It could be whatever makes sense to you.
And that's great. I mean, I love that you said, because like we mentioned, not every student learns the same way,
Yeah.
and that's some of the things that we as teachers, we that's the importance of building that community in the classroom. That's the importance of knowing your students, where they're coming from, what makes them happy, what doesn't make them happy. And I know it may seem hard, at the beginning, because you're like, oh, come on, Mendoza, be serious. Like, I've got 25 kids. It really doesn't take that long to build your community, at the beginning of the year, getting to know your students. And I always tell them it's a return on investment. The more you get to know your students at the very beginning and pick up little things here and there, and just write down, as a teacher, I would write down little notes, sticky notes, and just say, hey, this student this student that. And I would remember that, keep that, and then that way, if I ever needed to address the student, maybe they were having a bad day, I can go back and say, okay, so now I know how to talk to them. I know how to maybe explain something to them. I see how they love maybe to do drawings instead of, using the Chromebook, and you start giving them, what works best for them. So I love what you said there, especially the thinking. It's not always linear.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be A, B, C, D, E. It could
Yeah.
be, all over the place. And I think that's something that is very, very important, that I know we stress it a lot, talking to, as education leaders, always, yes, student voice, student choice, building community. And we know what we mean by that. We model it, but we really
Hmm.
need to maybe do a better job too within our districts, to provide more of that professional development, but like I said, I mean, we're all learning. We're still learning, and I know it's kind of, every year I always saw it as a fresh start to getting to know my students, and that really helps out a lot. Building that community right from the get go. Just want to give a shout out to Brian, Felly, and Amanda who have been joining us in the chat. And Brian here has a nice comment here. Good beard, Omar. So it's all that. Brian definitely has an epic beard there too as
It
well.
does. It does.
Yeah, he does. Relationships are important. I agree, Felly. That's one thing that, I know that all three of us, Omar, myself, you, and even Amanda, Tim, who's joining us right here from Teachers on Fire, we are all about building those relationships and things of that sort, and again, it's so important to really get to know our students. So now, amplifying creativity, Omar, that's something like I know you hit the sketch noting. And, for me, myself, I've never been that great of an artist or a doodler, but I have, as of late, kind of picked up a little bit more. And I can see like those connections, those visuals, because they serve as cues for me to say, oh, yeah, that's that concept. And yeah, that's that concept. And so making learning more visual is definitely something that has helped me, even professionally and personally. But I really see those added benefits to the students as well. How doodling, making little notes, drawings, it's not that they're bored in class. It's just, hey, this is the way they process things. They're going to come back to that and so on. So I'm glad that you mentioned that too as well, because oftentimes educators, may see like, oh, they're not paying attention,
Yeah.
hey, and they try to, just, I don't know, what it is.
Yeah.
So
And let me just, I worked at a call center, right? So when I was going to college, um, and when I was speaking with customers, the pen was going, and I was drawing cubes, and I was drawing shapes, and I was drawing swirls, and then I noticed, like, after every call, especially on an extensive call, and I wasn't the only one. People would just draw in shapes and squares and just go over every square every time, and then it's been shown that just that doodling does help retain more the information on there. So that was just part of it. And before we move on, I want to just Brian mentioned, like a project for students. One of the things that I used to do when I was in the classroom was using Spark Post, right? The Adobe Sparks, those are amazing. So using that Adobe Spark post for students to create something about themselves, and then you got to learn. You had students, right, that even though they didn't put "I love the outdoors," just when you saw the pictures that they put, you would know, oh man, this child, he likes hunting or he likes fishing, even though he didn't explicitly tell you I love this. You, by the pictures that he chose, just the design that he put into his post told you that he's an outdoor child, or that he likes the outdoors. And you had your band kiddos, and you saw the kids that loved reading. So when we pay attention to those other messages that are coming from our students, not necessarily explicit, but when they use their creativity, they're telling you something about themselves as well. So that's when I would see that, I'm like, okay. And that's how, as has been mentioned here, right, we make those connections and build those relationships, because they never told you. It was like, oh, I never told Mr. Lopez I like hunting, but you knew that he
yeah.
liked hunting because you listen or you observe, just not with your five senses, but with a little bit more. So I'm sorry, just,
Yes.
yeah, that was something
No,
I want to
man, that
point
is
out.
awesome. And I love that you said that because I mean, I know, like I mentioned earlier, it's about getting to know your students and building community. And oftentimes, you know the way it is in the classroom, Omar. It's like
Yeah.
curriculum. You got to be this. You
Yeah.
got to do this. And a lot of teachers, I mean, it's like, oh man, I got to get this done, and so on and so forth. But something like a simple exercise like that, like you said, hey guys, you know what? The usual about me's, at the beginning of the year, and I know they do, a lot of teachers do a great job with the about me's, doing on
Hmm.
paper, depending on the grade level and so on. But now, with the experience that the students have, from the last year and a half going one to one and so on. And then you've got some amazing, creativity tools like Adobe, Spark, and so on. I mean, like you said, just something so simple like, hey, give me an about me. and they start putting in those images, and that as teachers, that serves, like you said, as a visual cue, and say, okay, I know how to get this student's attention,
Yep.
how to redirect in a positive way, in a way that is personal to them. And maybe even just like you said, you're seeing them also too, they have a bad day, and then you can talk to them about something like, hey, I see that they had a saxophone there. Hey, I used to be in band. How's band? How's it been? What songs are you playing? What do you like to do? And you're building that community. The student feels like, oh wow, like they care about me, or Mr. Lopez knows that I like this, Mr. Or you find an article and you say, hey, let me talk to them about it. And man, it's just something that's beautiful. And the students, they connect with you, and that's what
Yep.
it is too. The power of connections, even within our classrooms, is so important. And so I agree with you on definitely amplifying creativity through the use of doodles, through sketchnoting, Adobe Spark, and Adobe Spark Post, because I feel that's something that we need to do a little bit more in the classroom. And I've mentioned this over and over. When Tisha Ponte was here, we said we kind of came down to like about third grade being where students kind of start slowing down that creative
Hmm.
process, because we know that state testing happens.
Yeah.
But there there's a way to balance the creative component with the learning, and still being able to, I guess, show that you did teach those teaks and prepare students for state testing in a visual way, in a kinesthetic way, in an auditory way, because they're moving around, learning, making those connections. And so tell us a little bit maybe about some of those experiences, maybe for yourself too as well, your experiences of that, or how you've helped teachers, because we know that you did a lot of tech coaching as well. Some of the things that you would help teachers with so they can find that creative balance along with the curriculum.
It, and I think this year more, or this past school year, right? The end of last spring and then this past school year just showed how creative teachers. We know teachers are creative and teachers are resourceful like nobody else, right? And you mentioned this in one of the other shows, past shows. Adapt and overcome, or improvise, adapt and
Hmm.
overcome. And that's teachers, right? That's in the teacher DNA, I think. And we become very creative, and now we've had to find ways of engaging students. Sometimes it was just like fully virtual, and we had to not necessarily reinvent ourselves or the way we taught, but be creative and make sure that we reached every child that was across the computer screen. So as far as what we do creatively, and I think it's still taking that student expectation, the TEKS, right? That what's going to be tested. So we take the student expectation and now we use models such as SAMR and TPAC, right? How can we bring in that technology and still go in depth so that the students understand the concept? I was teaching science a few years back, and it wasn't so much about a multiple choice assessment at the end of the week. It was create a project, create a video, create a visual, create an illustration, create whatever you want, but then we still have the opportunity to check for understanding and assess the learning. And I think that's something that we've when we do professional development and help teachers out is, okay, let's take the student expectation, right? And we unpack, like we say, unpack the teaks, understand what's the verb, what do they need to know, and what else is included in the student expectation. Okay, so now we know what they need to do. Okay, what project or what product can they use, can they do to demonstrate understanding? Are we going to get rid of multiple choice tests? No, because they're always going to be there. But in our classrooms, we can do other types of assessments so that we can check to see if our students understand, or if we need to, you know, redirect or make correctives or clarify a misconception through other products. So we talked a lot about app smashing, right?
Yeah.
Um, Using multiple apps. I am a big believer in film besides sketchnoting, right? So just creating little clips, either with with Spark Video, which I love because it's got the outlines, and I think that's one tool that needs to be explored, and it needs to go into every classroom, regardless of what you teach. Apple Clips is another one that one of my favorites, because they're able to use all these design elements and little um, clips to show what they're saying, and then their voice can go on there too. One of my favorites, and not just because Fendi is in Flipgrid, right? Works for Flipgrid, but Flipgrid students can, with all the features that's in there, whether it's filters or stickers or text or what have you, students can go in front of the camera if they want to, or block the camera and just go mic only and explain. One, we practicing the language. Two, it's their voice. And three, we're checking to see if it made sense to them. And we are able to see the thought process. And I think that's super important, that we as educators see the thought process, what's going on, and why did they interpret what I was teaching a certain way. Do I need to teach differently? Because we don't want our students to learn like the way we teach. We got to teach the way they learn, right? So then that gives us an idea. So using that, and I think that's what we modeled and what we showed teachers, is that we have all these other tools, and we don't have to use 1,000 tools. We can just focus on some, um, and embed them into the curriculum. We're not getting away from the teach. We're not teaching something that's not in the curriculum. We're just finding ways creatively, one for us, and then allowing our students to use their creativity to show us and demonstrate their understanding. And I think that's probably what we push more, uh, is understanding the TEKS, the concept, the curriculum, and then using videos or visuals, or whatever, drawings to show us what they can do, and give them choice. With app smashing, you give them 6 7 apps, choose 2 or 3, give me the end product. This is what your end product should look like. This is what you should say, and then we go from there.
Yeah, I love it because that kind of reminds me of my last 3 years or 4 years in the classroom when Chromebooks were starting to roll out. Man, I was that one teacher that had the Chromebook cart because we only had one at the time or two. I was the one teacher that signed it out like the whole year,
Yeah.
and I would have it because I would use them every day, and for that same reason that. And I love what you said. It's like we need to I can't remember how you word it, but it's like teach the way the students learn, not the way that we learned. Or I think you said something
Yeah.
along those lines.
So yeah, teach the way the students learn, not have the students learn the way we teach,
There
right?
you go.
That's so
I love that.
it's because we tailor it, man, and
Yeah.
it's personalized instruction, and it's not even personalized, because maybe just changing the verbiage, or
Mhm.
changing the imagery, or changing our delivery method. Uh, it's not like we're doing double work. We're just doing it here, and now we're doing it here. So
Yeah.
I think that's beneficial to our
Yeah.
kiddos.
And I love that. Like you said, like, you're giving them here's all the tools you can use, but here's the end product that I want. And there's so many advantages to that, Omar. And even you and I, through our experience in the master's program, because we took some classes together. Well, actually, we took, like, I believe it was just one class together, but we had to do like that creative video and things of that sort. But I mean, our final product, for our master's program was a portfolio. And so it pretty much they're learning artifacts that you get to see yourself, even as a professional, as an adult, seeing, oh man, this is like when I first started my first class, and look at where I ended now. And you're able to see that progression, and that, I think, is something that I love too as well. My last 4 years, being able to give the students the opportunity to explain the concept, uh, how they internalized it, and then it was so great to see the different types of thought process that every student had. And then just to get to the end result where you as a teacher can visually see, like you said, you're still able to see that the learning took place. You have a learning artifact. You're able to see yourself as a teacher visually, or you can hear if maybe there's a misconception where you can go back and reteach that concept, because as teachers sometimes we may explain something a little differently, the students don't get it, you can go back, but that helps you as a teacher as well because you're getting that feedback from the student. But I think it's that evidence of learning where if you have a student that maybe had not been performing well, but you're able to see their growth, they're able to see their growth visually. And at the end, that builds up that confidence too, as well. And, it's just something that just keeps boosting, their learning from year to year. And that's something that I found to be so helpful, man. It was awesome. And even like you said, for us, or like I said, for us in the master's program, that's still something that resonates with me in having, a live portfolio and seeing our growth as well as professionals.
Yeah, and I think that's great. So a huge shout out to the UTRGV EdTech program, man.
Mhm.
They're amazing, and I talk about it because it was all hands on, and the professor was like, "Well, this is what you need to do, and well, you do whatever you want to do, however you want to do it. This is the rubric, but you're going to be building and developing this product that's yours." And I think that in itself is great for any learner, right? Because it's personalized and we take ownership of that. So the master's
Mm.
program was amazing because everything was hands-on. It's we can apply it anytime, anywhere, wherever, not necessarily in education. So that was good. And I think that I've always liked to do the same thing with my students and have them demonstrate their understanding in a creative way, because it's just like you mentioned, it's a boost of confidence, right? One, you let
Yes.
them, you give them that autonomy to do what they want to do, to show you that they can, and then they just build on that. Again, to me, it was pictures and drawings and illustrations, and then videos, and that just helped me just learn altogether. So when I had to do like videos for my master's courses, I was like, "Yep,
Yeah.
that's awesome." When I was able to do illustrations and putting them into my Google Sites or my WordPress, I was like, "Yep, that's great," because it showed what I was learning and everything. So we took an academic text and made it colorful. Although sometimes we cannot make it colorful with our wording, but I made it colorful in an illustration, so it was good.
Yeah, and so I mean that just goes to show that even us as adults, we find creative ways of doing our work. And I think sometimes when they get you out of that traditional setting of, here, this is the way you're going to do it, here's the
Yeah.
worksheet, and you're just left with that, you know I think my first experience there, the first semester, when they said, "Oh, well, here's what you need to do, just go and do it and figure it out," I'm like, Wait a minute, hold up." Like it just didn't hit me
Yeah.
until later on, and I was like, "Oh wow, they're giving me a choice so I can do this." They're like, "Just this is the only thing that I need at the end, just to demonstrate this, and you can do it and make it, relative to either your work setting, your interests, whatever it is. Find a real world problem and put your own spin on it." Man, that really helps open up your creative juices. Your mind opens up, you see things in a different light, and then you just submit something, and they're like, "Wow, like this is great." Like, and it really, like you said, it does boost that confidence. I just wanted to share a story, and since I know that you'll be starting the program soon, the doctoral program, this semester, one of our profs gave a choice board and said, "Okay, this is your choice for the class. It's just, these are your contact hours. You can either come to all are the lectures. You can do a conference, some hours of the conference, up to 12 hours. You can do a book study, or you can watch a movie." And then, of course, I had to add, "Can I do a podcast?" And they're like, "Sure, we'll go ahead and add that on there." So I'll be doing a podcast for that. But the look on the faces of some of my peers, that were there, they were kind of like, "Whoa, like, what do you mean?" Like, they didn't understand the concept. Like, she's like, "Yeah, I'm giving you a choice. Like, you can either do any of these, or any combination of, just as long as you meet the requirements." And I was like, well, they were like, "What's going on? Can you explain this?" And it kind of resonates with me that from such an early age, we continually tell our students, this is the way it needs to be done. This is the way it needs to be done. That even sometimes as once you get into that adult setting, when you've always been told the way it needs to be done and not be able to think outside the box, you kind of find yourself in a situation like this where, well, what do you mean? I don't know where to start. And that kind of confusion, that fear, that anxiety kind of sets in. And then for us, we're like, okay, cool. So I get a choice of this. All right, let's go with this. Let's roll. And that's why I think amplifying creativity at an early age, K through 12, giving students those opportunities to create, to express themselves. And not only that, but they're using the tools that are going to get them ready for college courses now, with portfolios, with doctoral courses, with the skills that they're going to need for the jobs of tomorrow that may not be there yet for them, but they're going to be able to improvise, adapt, and overcome and have that wealth of knowledge. So I think that's something that's very important. So yeah,
And,
big shout out to the master's program for sure.
yeah, it's awesome. They're awesome, man. And it's that creativity that allows them to thrive in any field, right? So whether it's STEM related, medical, corporate, whatever, it's that creativity that's going to set them apart. So we were having a camp with students just this week, and it was like, okay, it's you. This project is for you. Students working on digital portfolio too, right? So we're working on sites, and they were given the choice. Okay, do you want to embed a slideshow or slides or create your own images? So they were given choice, and they were very happy that they had given the choice, just like we were. But and that's one thing that we told them: it's your creativity is going to set you apart from other applicants, right? So it's that creativity and being able to work with whatever tool, with in any situation, and be able to problem solve, because creativity is helps you problem solve, and we know that. Because like you mentioned, you improvising, adapting, overcoming, and finding a problem, and creatively you solve and find a solution to the problem. So creativity, I think, it's just something that is beneficial in any field. And the more we amplify, the more we nurture it, and it's like a little plant. We've got to water creativity and just let it flourish. uh, and then eventually our students are going to find, like with me, with sketchnoting and maybe video making, right? And that's where I went. Other other individuals are musical, and I wish I could be musically inclined, and I think I can probably just tap a table, and that's as much music as I can make. But I can draw, and it's just, eventually students are going to find what they really prefer, and clicks for them.
Yeah. Well, I had a question here from Brian. And so
Yeah.
Brian said, but how soon can we give our students a choice board without teaching them some tools to open opportunities, growing a toolkit? Um, I think even just as a choice board, maybe on some of them you don't even have to integrate tech, maybe for the littles, or maybe some for the littles. I mean, you've got apps like Seesaw that can allow you to be creative too at an early age. But yeah, maybe what are your thoughts? How soon is can you start maybe a choice board, or implementing that in your classroom?
I think it could be at any level. I think what's difficult for us, and I want to say, it's like having too many fonts, right? You have too many
Yes.
fonts, so you're like, okay, what do I use? What do I use? Eventually, you end up going to like your top four. We don't want to give too many options and too many choices to our students, because that then maybe they're going to be too indecisive on what they're going to do. But Seesaw, and again, I'm going to go back to Flipgrid. You're giving them, okay, just simple choices as far as filters or frames or what to do. I think that in itself, you're building up the practice of having choice, right? And personalize it. Maybe for the littles, you take them, okay, you're gonna either draw this or build this. So maybe a couple of options. I think there is really no age when we say, oh, don't do choice boards with them. Us as educators, we're probably just gonna have to give them a couple of choices, and where they feel successful more than anything. we don't want to give them something extremely difficult where they might not necessarily feel accomplished with what they're doing, but just kind of see that the level of in the classroom. And I don't like to use the word level, but sometimes we have to give choices, because we have some students that are going to do extremely well and excel in one thing. So just being able to give them choices for the ones that might struggle a little bit more, or the ones that are going to do exceptionally well, just give them those other choices. Because you're going to have somebody like I'm not going to write a song. One of the choices is to write a song. There's no way I'm going to write a song or a poem or anything like that. But if one of the options is to draw, I'm going to select that
Yeah.
one. So just giving them those choices to show what they're doing. And it's not like it's going to be every assignment is going to be a choice board, or a choice to show creativity, but just once in a while give them that. So I guess we see what's in our classroom and what students we have. And once we understand them, then we're able to provide choices, one for the overachiever and one for the struggler, the one that struggles, and then something in between there, just so that we are not necessarily doing personalized instruction, but we are doing personalized instruction and teaching for them. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's hidden in there. It's hidden in there. So
Yeah.
that's good, man. Awesome, dude. Well, I appreciate it. I know we're kind of, running out of time. I really wanted to go in deeper so everybody gets to know Omar a little bit more. But I think our conversation today has been definitely filled with rich content talking about creativity. And I'm just so, thankful for Brian and Amanda who've been, out here on the show. Feli, Tim, who's joining. I know Tim's getting ready probably in about 8 minutes. He's starting his show too as well, and so he'll be a guest coming up in 2 weeks. So I'm excited for Tim to be here as well. But let's do a couple of like little rapid fire questions, Omar. Just they're not going to be too heavy, but just to get to know a little bit more of the heart that you have. So uh, what inspired you to be an educator or be in education?
Oh, man. I guess just wanting to help others that struggled like I did, and just kind of help open doors for others. Not necessarily that they were shut on me, but just seeing how I struggled, and that kind of drove me that way. And also just uh, when we were in college, Feli and I were tutors, so just the way we connected with other students at the Success Center, and just seeing that reward of how college students were thanking us for helping them. And I think that kind of prompted me. And of course, Feli's just an inspiration. She's been a teacher, I guess, since she was born. She was meant for that. So just seeing her, and when we met in college, and just that drove me that way.
Nice, nice. All right. So, well, now that we know, my question was, is when did you realize you wanted to do this as a career? Well, when Feli decided to do it as a career, you decided to do it as a career.
Yeah, yeah. Like,
No,
come
no,
on.
no. That's good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Maybe just a little bit more serious, a little deep thought. It could be personal, professional, or a mix of both. Maybe I'm guessing it might be professional, but what is your biggest fear, man?
Oh man, that you're throwing curveball, knuckleballs, everything. Is like,
Everything, man.
the
Everything.
biggest fear is, and I'm gonna go personal, is not making my family proud. I guess I want to be a role model for our boys, and just that'll be the that's my biggest, and it's gonna be personal. Just not being a or being a bad example for my children. That would be my biggest fear, is not being someone that they look up to. That would be, our boys are everything. So just that would be the worst thing. Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you something, my friend. You are a role model to me. What you and Feli do is just amazing, and I really look up to both of you because you guys have always been have a heart for educators, have a heart for students, and it just really shows and in everything that you guys do. So maybe just to kind of put you at ease, I think that if I see you in this light, as far as the way that you are, I'm positive that your lovely wife and your kids definitely see the work that you do and that you put into this, my friend. So you keep doing what you're doing because you have
Thank
such an
you.
amazing heart and amazing talent for everything in education, and that is, I'm speaking truth, my friend.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All
All
right,
right.
man. And then let's go ahead and go into this one here. Let me see. Where is it? Where is it?
And while
I
you
don't know
find it,
why.
I'm also afraid of lizards. I fear lizards. I don't know
Lizards.
why you find out.
There you
I'm
go.
terrified. Like snakes, spiders, everything else, but lizards, oh my gosh. That's like no.
Oh man. All right. Well, I can't find it, but I'll ask it anyway. If you can have a billboard with anything on it, anything, what would it be and why?
Anything on it, I think it's a message for everybody. And it was something that I mentioned when I did Flipgrid Live back in 19. And it's not just about climbing our mountain, right? Because we have our mountains. It's not about just climbing our mountain, but about helping others climb theirs as well. What good is it that I'm on top if I'm not bringing others with me? So I think that's the message that I wish everybody could take into heart. It's just not your mountain, but it's helping others climb theirs as well.
Yeah, I love that. Brian was asking, do you like, is it the small lizards or the big ones that you're scared of the most?
Any lizards,
Any lizard.
especially the little ones, man, those are like no, no, little ones
Is it,
for sure.
I don't know what they call it. Aquí los lagartijitos, the little small ones that are clear, that
Yes,
look like
those are
little
the
penguins.
worst. Those are oh
Those, like, they
my
just
god.
skittle, and when you chop the tail off, it like still keeps moving. I know.
Mm. I think I don't know if it's a Mexican thing or a family thing, but we heard stories about lagartijos when we were growing up. Like, no,
Yes.
man, that's like
No, see,
we're
see
not
los
gotta go into
lagartijos
that.
aquí. Yeah. No, I get
Yeah.
it. All right, my friend. And then here we go. If you and I could switch roles, what would be one thing that you would ask me?
Um, that's a good question. So it would be how much oh man, how much have you learned from all these shows that you've done, man? You have
Oh,
great guests, and I've seen quite a bit of these shows, and the people that you've had, and they're just amazing individuals. So how much have you learned all together, man, since you started back, when pandemic hit, and you got the show going for the whole, for, like you said, every educator, one educator, and just connected educators. How much have you grown? Because this is something that I admire, and I think we admire for what you're doing, because this came from your heart, and you're like, I'm going to be connected educators, and I'm going to start with here, but now you're global, man. So we're very proud of what you're doing for the valley, because we know you're doing it from the heart, and you're doing it just to connect people. So how much have you learned from all these amazing people you've had on your show?
man, it is just a countless, endless well and wealth of information and knowledge. You know, every guest, and this is why I really mean, like, this show is my passion. This show is what I love to do, and connecting educators and creators. But it really, it becomes a personal PD for me for about 50 minutes to an hour, where I get to ask somebody that I look up to in education, a role model, an education leader, and I get to have them on and ask questions, like one on one, where sometimes people may be scared and they don't reach out on Twitter or something, and then they're the nicest people, guys. So that's why I always tell you guys, if there are some edu leaders out there that you want to know something from, DM them, connect with them, ask them, and they're willing to help. But for myself, from every guest, I take something that has, and I'm going to be very honest and sincere, that it has given me the confidence to really step into a room and feel that I belong. And that may sound funny, like, what do you mean you don't belong? Well, as I've said in several shows, I didn't go through the College of Education. I went through the College of Business, and I fell into education because that was my fork in the road moment. But I always say with my sincerest, feelings, that I fell into education and fell absolutely in love with everything about education, the practice, the even the hardships, all of those things, because they're learning experiences. But what has helped me now is being able to have wonderful leaders on, and just in the fact that they get to share their story, I get to take a little part of them, and those little knowledge nuggets, it just really, I put them down, I write down these notes, and it has given me the confidence to feel that I do belong, that what I have been doing and what I've learned on my own and what I've been able to do through reaching out, I can go into a room now and actually express my opinion, because before it was like, oh, he's just the ed tech guy. He's just the tech guy. And honestly, it can feel, pretty, pretty interesting where, Omar, like you said, you're really fighting. You're fighting every day to make sure that people know that you do know what you're talking about, aside just from the tech. And it's been a battle. It's been hard. That's why I got my master's. I just got my technology certification for a technology director. I'm working on my PhD because it has always felt like you said, I'm climbing that mountain. And what I want to do, like you said, this is my mountain to climb, but I want to bring more people with me. And so I have gotten so much courage to know and be bold and speak up, to advocate for students, to advocate for teachers, and to really want to change education. And every single person that has been on here today is, show 73 that we're doing. And man, I just keep getting stronger and stronger. And you guys build me up. So that is why I do what I do. And that is the passion that I have. So what you see me doing and working on and posting and blogging and doing all of that is because of every single one of you that have been on the show, and those that I follow that haven't been on the show yet. You guys, this is what can happen to an adult. Imagine if we were to do this in the classroom and build up our students, that confidence that they would get, just bringing that creativity, and just to feel like they belong and they are part of a community. And I know maybe that kind of went a different way, but it's just me speaking from the heart. So thank you for
No,
asking
that
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 question, man.
yeah, it's and that's what I wanted to, because you've motivated, you've inspired many, and you've had some amazing people on the show. And I think Gabriel mentioned this last time. What was it like if somebody wants to get started on a podcast and they give us, well, just do it. Just do it. And I know Al and Claudia and all these creative people, and it's about doing what you want and doing it, from the heart. So I cannot thank you enough, and I think many educators, especially here in the Valley, we thank you for bringing a community together and getting us out there and just connecting with people like, from the UK, from Australia, from Colombia. I know we got, you have fans from all over the place, and they follow you because of what you do and because you do it from the heart. So I think I can speak for many when we say thank you for doing the show. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share my voice. And like you said, sometimes we have to work a little harder, but that's okay, because we're an example for our students, across the border. And we just have to keep on working hard, keep on grinding, keep on pushing. And no matter how high that mountain gets, we got to keep going and bring somebody up with us, and that's what we got to do. And like Feli says, we got to be our biggest cheerleader for our students. And what a better way to be a cheerleader for our students than setting the example. So again, thank you for having me, and thank you for what you do for every educator, man. I
Wow,
appreciate it.
man. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you. And Feli, thank you so much for your comments. Brian, Amanda, everywhere. Thank you. I really appreciate y'all. Let me see. It says, Omar, where do you put out your content on social media? Brian, I did share the link here for Omar's Twitter handle. But do you have anywhere else that you have some stuff out, Omar, that you can share?
Uh, Not yet. And Feli was telling me you should put all your graphics on Instagram, and I will. So I'm gonna be sharing some of my stuff on Twitter. Is probably the best way. I got a few videos on YouTube, but on Twitter, and today I'm gonna work on that Instagram. And again, Feli's been telling me to, like, you gotta do it. I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna share some on Instagram, and just put all my illustrations together, and maybe just a little writing about it. So if you just stay tuned on Twitter, I'll share a link there, and then from there it will take you to either a blog or the Instagram page. So that way I'll share a little bit more. So
Yeah. All right, my
today is the
friend.
day we start, buddy. So
There you go. Hey, I'm glad
this
because
this
because
is
like
it.
Gabriel said, you just do it. You either click record or you just put it out there. You write it, type it out.
Yeah.
No fear. We're all here to help each other and everything, and that's awesome. So I'm really excited that you're going to be putting some stuff out, man. I really appreciate that because that's definitely going to help inspire and fan that flame and that little spark that people may have. I mean, just really build it up into a flame and a passion. And I know you and I think are very similar in that in anything we do, we really do it from the heart, and we really do it for the benefit of others to help build them up. So I'm really excited for that and your projects and everything that you're doing. And of course, with Feli, thank you so much, Feli, for also your support and everything that you do. You guys are just amazing, and just continue doing what you're doing. The Lopez family, powerhouse. Thank you
Feli's
guys.
my rock, man. I do everything because of her. So she's like everything. Whatever lo que se me ocurre, she's like, yeah, let's
Sí.
do it. And like,
Oye,
so
pero eso
she's
parece que
awesome.
eso también tenemos en común las esposas. If it wasn't for our wives, just,
Yeah,
we're thinking 10x, and they're like,
yeah,
just do it, go for it, hazlo, órale. I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
okay, let's do it. So that's been amazing, man.
Oh,
Well, oh,
and happy anniversary yesterday, right? It was your
oh
anniversary.
yeah, thank you,
Yes.
thank you.
So
Yes, we just
like
celebrated
that's
our 5 years, of
that's
marriage, and
awesome.
it's just been
Felicidades.
amazing. So muchas gracias, ha sido una gran bendición. Mi esposa es un gran apoyo y en todo, digo,
Yeah,
de mis más grandes locuras, ella siempre ha estado allí diciéndome, tú puedes, tú
eso.
puedes, tú puedes. Yeah. So thank you to my
That's
lovely
great.
wife, Angelica. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And to all our fans, everybody listening, everybody watching, thank you so much again, as always, from the heart, for making Maya Tech Life what it is today. If it wasn't for creators and educators like you, it'd be maybe very difficult for us to do this, but you guys motivate me. And like I mentioned to you, I take a little bit out of everything that I learned from you guys. You have really built up this show. I'm just the face and just an extension of every single one of you. So thank you so much. And again, we're just going to continue doing this. We've got some great shows lined up. So make sure you join us next Saturday. We've got Al Kingsley all the way from the UK. He's going to be joining us, and we're going to be just getting to know Al's story. If you don't know Al yet, just look him up, Al Kingsley. He's got a book that's coming out too as well, and we're going to learn a little bit more about his experience in the UK. And of course, we're going to dive in deep with Al and getting to know him as well. That way you can connect with him. So thank you all, my friends. I really appreciate you all. You all have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. And keep in mind, guys, or as always, I should say, don't forget to stay techie, my friends. Y'all take care.